Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? This is Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan. It has been a very interesting week, Adam, for Birds fans. We have an actual signing to discuss, although based on the reaction that I saw on social media, maybe not the signing that everybody was hoping for. We'll talk about Jason Peters. We will talk about Jadeveon, Clowney, Yannick Ngakoue, all the cast of characters whose names have come up lately as we have a pretty beefy Inside the Birds to get to tonight. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. As always, Adam, I remind everybody to catch our most recent ITB shows. We've discussed Jadeveon Clowney before. We've discussed the linebacker issues. We've discussed Jalen Reagor's role. And a big topic that we'll even get into a little bit today, and we've talked about a lot, and I suggest everybody really listen, is the challenges ahead at training camp. It will definitely be a training camp like no other this year when it finally begins. Also, ITB TV, interviews with Andrew Brandt, Brian Westbrook, me and Adam on the Deshaun Jackson situation. Got to check those out, along with our Football at 4 interviews on 97.3 South Jersey, which are all available on our YouTube channel. So, Adam, you're still hanging out down in North Carolina right now, right, or something like that?
Yeah. So, look, I guess we could get started with the Jason Peters situation. It's funny. Yeah. We had said for weeks he's going to come back. It was kind of odd that it was taking this long. But when Brian Baldinger had the tweet, which you may be aware of on, was it Sunday, maybe?
Monday, I want to say Saturday or Sunday. Yeah.
Okay. Because last weekend,
was down with them.
Right. So I looked at him like, what could this be? We talked in our previous show about Clowney, the one that dropped Monday, which, by the way, is probably our most listened pod in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
We really took a deep dive into Clowney, and I have additional new information on that. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But the Peters stuff really is fascinating because we've brushed on Peters as a guard, and we was dismissed when I'd asked people like, no. We're talking about last season. We had, I think, been asked about it on maybe on our message board or somewhere, or asked ITB with a hashtag. So it just was that there was really no room for him to play guard. Well, that's before Brandon Brooks got hurt. What right. I find fascinating, Geoff, is that first of all, when did they decide that he'd play right guard? Because I talked to a couple of people connected to the decision. It was sort of a collaborative decision, between the agent, the player, Jeff Stoutland, Howie Roseman, and other people, just to figure out whether Jason Peters could play guard. But this is a very interesting situation because typically you're not going to ask guys only play one position for 18 years. To switch positions this late in his career at 38 years old. It's just not what you do. But if anyone could do it, Geoff, I think it would be Jason Peters.
I would say that, yes, if anybody could do it, it would be Jason Peters, which is not the exact thing as saying Jason Peters will definitely be able to do it. And I think that a big issue that I think we should all consider, and this is something that I think we had Trey Thomas on quite a while ago, and we asked him about Jason Peters returning. And I think when Brandon Brooks was hurt, we even mentioned, could he play guard? And Trey, during that ITB TV episode, talked about the difficulty that anybody faces moving from tackle to guard because you're dealing with a lot of different variables. So for one, playing right guard, Jason's going to be playing on the right side for the first time in his career. That's a stance issue that's going to be a little bit different, a stance adjustment, I should say. Number two, you're facing a lineman now across from you who's going to be in that 300 to 320, maybe 330 pound coming right at you, as opposed to nowadays edge rushers tend to be anywhere between 270 to 300. 300 is usually heavy.
No. It's
yeah. They're usually way, yeah. Right.
260 to 270. You're right, though. Look, the footwork's different. That's, I'd ask someone who I consider a real expert on offensive line play. The footwork is different. You don't have that. Remember, when you're blocking for left tackle, you don't have anyone to your left. That's your area. You're protecting the quarterback's blind side. Now you have someone to your right and your left. And it's a different mindset. And here's the other thing, which someone pointed out to me, I completely forgot about this. Peters does not practice very much during training camp. They have him take like selected reps, and that's it. Well, here's the question, Geoff. Because he was not even with the football team this offseason, remember, he never had the virtual program, nothing. Do you ask him to practice quite a bit?
I don't see how you get around that. And that raises my third issue, Adam, and that's the durability of playing that position. That is a head-on, collision. And I'm not trying to say at left tackle you're not, but occasionally left tackle, you take your vertical sets, you might face a speed rusher and have your one-hand punch on. I mean, you're not constantly taking the same amount of punishment as an interior line. That's just facts. And interior offensive linemen are also among the most prone to concussions, right? But, you see a lot of injuries there. And you mentioned also blocking schemes are totally different. So it's not just like, I get that he's a Hall of Famer and that he's extremely athletic and extremely talented, but I don't think that just means the transition is seamless. And if we've already talked for the last 3 years about his ability to stay healthy playing left tackle, now you have to have that conversation even more so given the wear and tear of the position of playing guard in general. And so while it's a good, if you're going to replace Brandon Brooks, that's in name alone a really good replacement. But I don't know how much we can rely. I don't know how long this will last and how feasible it will be.
Yeah, so let me add this information that I got this week. So on Peters, the one of the things that people who graded his tape struggled a little bit with is he was on the ground more than usual. That's a scouting term. That's what the tape showed. This is everything I have is tape based. I don't guess. We get it from sources. So I get it from people who know the line play better than I do, which is pretty much anyone. I just don't. Offensive line, like when we had Greg Cosell on, remember Greg saying, look, that's not a strong point. You really have to talk to people who get offensive line play. So I talked to 3 people. I said, hey, can he do this? They all said to a man, yes, but here's the issue. Just to add to what we said earlier. His reflexes are not as good as they used to be. This is an issue, and you mentioned speed rushers. He struggled with speed rushers because sometimes he just can't bend well enough. He's not as flexible.
Right.
He's been beat up over the years, Achilles injuries. Yeah, he had those videos out there which were good. He looked pretty athletic, but that's not real. That's not football. That's running from space to space with no one hitting you, no one coming at you. The hand usage. Another thing I got was the hand usage is different. You're right, and it's also what we call confined space. You don't have to be so much of an athlete. You need to be more of a mauling type. And you're right, Geoff. The guys that he's going to go from playing guys 250 to 275 to probably 290 to 330. And that's now it's a strength issue, not so much a speed issue. Right. But it's also they're coming right at you. You made a great point earlier here. They're coming right at you. You're not waiting for them. With speed rushes, you got to get your hands on them, push them away. This is it's just a different mindset. So that's what I'm thinking, Geoff. Let's say, for instance, they would give him 20 reps per practice. He's going to have to get 40. He's going to have to get like 40 plus.
Yeah. And here's what compounds the issue again. Tell me what practice is going to look like.
Oh, yeah.
Are there 11 on 11s in training camp this year?
Great point.
Because if there's not, how is he going to get that experience that he needs? And the second thing I really wonder about, Adam, and I would love to talk to an offensive line expert on this, and maybe, we can get somebody on the next ITB TV or something down the road. But we have talked a lot about the change that we expect to see in the Eagles' run game because of the addition of Rich Scangarello and some of the Kyle Shanahan style concepts. And we talked about the misdirection, the motion and things like that. You watch a Shanahan, you see those guards are constantly kicking out, pulling one way, even if the play is designed the other way. It's all misdirection.
Right. By the way, on that, so with the Browns, Kevin Stefanski's bringing in zone stretch from his time with Gary Kubiak, who got it from obviously Mike Shanahan. Well, Scangarello is probably one of the concepts that he will be more than familiar with is that zone stretch. And this plays into what you just said. How athletic is Jason to pull? How far could he go? How well can he move? Again, he has not been with a football team. Right. We'll see what his weight is. His weight sometimes he gets up there, man. He can get up there a little bit.
Yep.
So you just don't have him there. So that would be my reaction, Geoff, just to it, that I was never thinking right guard. Boy, that floored me. It's funny because when they announced it, when I saw the announcement, they said guard. They didn't say guard/tackle.
Right.
And talking to the Eagles, he's their starting guard. So, Geoff, here's my question to you.
Mm-hmm.
What does this now mean for Matt Pryor and his future?
Well, this is the positive that I see. And I think I'll go back to what you and I kind of debated the last pod or two. And we were talking about, is it more important to upgrade left tackle because right now you have a question mark in Dillard, or is it more important to do something at right guard? And my feeling was right guard, not thinking Jason Peters, of course, but I felt like Matt Pryor would be perfect for competing for that right guard job. But if he didn't get it, he could then be the big V of this year, someone who can play guard and tackle, swing, and has a little bit of NFL experience, and then would enter this camp really competing against someone with experience. So now Jason Peters is there, and that is going to be the role, I would assume, for Matt Pryor as that swing guy.
As of right now.
Yeah. As of right now, tackle and guard. And that's good because he's actually played in the NFL. Imagine this. Imagine if Matt Pryor was and we've talked about this, your starting right guard going into the year, and he gets hurt. Your next man up is what? Nate Herbig?
Yeah,
you guys never played, and he might be a good player, but he just never played. We can criticize Big V.
We played in week 17. He did
but
get
he was important.
Herbig actually got maybe 6 snaps on offense last season.
He got in there a little bit,
but it's not meaningful. He got his feet wet, but you're absolutely right. Look, Matt Pryor played less than 2 games. He started one and he played in less than 2 games. So. They're going really young. They do not have that veteran, Jordan Mailata. So, Geoff, let's get right into it. You mentioned Herbig. Mm-hmm. What does their depth look like now? So on game day, you don't dress more than 8. You dress typically about 8. The only way you would dress 9 is if someone's hurt, where you're not sure how long they're going to last.
Right.
So right now, they have 2 new starters. Peters is no longer their left tackle. Obviously, he's going to be the right guard. And Andre Dillard now is their starting left tackle. So that's 2 changes. What is their backup rotation look like?
Well, I would have to think that the next 3 guys, I mean, obviously competition and health will determine this before we can really answer the question, but Pryor is going to be your top backup. Healthy Mailata is going to be active and on the team. They want him to be there. Yeah. So those are your 2. And then you kind of have a battle. I mean, Herbig will probably be the lead horse, but certainly a guy like Sua Opeta, certainly a guy like Jack Driscoll, who they drafted in the 4th round, will be in that mention. Now, but it's good because if there's not a lot of camp and when they've already lost all the OTAs, a guy like Driscoll might be way, way behind.
Yeah, I don't think
it may be very difficult for him to do that.
Right. So right now, the way I see it, Pryor's your swing. He's the first lineman off the bench. Herbig's the backup center. Mailata's the backup right tackle. Pryor. Oh, okay. Let me. Actually, we need to stretch this further here.
Uh-huh.
If Dillard gets hurt, I would think Peters would move to left tackle, and then obviously Pryor would move to right guard.
If Peters, right? Say if Dillard gets hurt,
yes. If Dillard can't play for whatever reason, I got to think that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you wonder at all if a healthy and impressive Jordan Mailata would get that spot just so they could leave Lane Johnson at right tackle?
Well, the only thing is, again, he did not have an offseason of on the field. He's never played in a regular season game in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather go with now. Again, we know we've mentioned this many times. Not a secret. Jeff Stoutland, the offensive line coach, does not like moving players because one move begets another move and another move. Sometimes he'd rather not do that.
Right.
But to me, you're talking about the blind side. As much as Jordan Mailata is a freak, he's going to have a great camp. Here's another problem, Geoff. Probably no preseason games. It's nothing official yet.
Probably.
The league wants 2. The PA wants 0. Even if they have some, he's going to have an incredible camp and training camp for me to feel like he could be the backup left tackle. If Dillard gets hurt or gets benched, let's say he's not playing well. I'll tell you what. There's another point here. If he does not perform well this season, let's say early on, let me throw this back to you. Do you go to Mailata or you go to Peters?
It's a really good question. I think that they would like not to have to answer that, but if they do, I think they would like the benefit of time. Yeah, I think that they can't answer that right now. But I think just the mere presence of Jason Peters there, even if he's playing right guard, sends a message to Andre Dillard, and maybe this is a good thing that he's really got to make sure he's on his game, because any slippage and the coaches could decide to put Peters back at left tackle and stick Pryor at their right guard, and now you're Andre Dillard, and you're wondering where what just happened to me. So
right.
There's that option is there. That's good optionality. It's good, I guess, internal pressure or external pressure on Andre Dillard, but it's really not a scenario I think the Eagles want to have to face, obviously.
Yeah, so the best case scenario is the starting five, which we've outlined. Pryor's your top backup, Herbig's your backup center, and Mailata's your backup right tackle, left tackle, maybe, swing tackle, and Pryor's going to be the backup guard at either spot. You're pretty much going to – the thinking right here is this. You're starting five, the three guys who will dress as backups will be Pryor, Mailata, and Herbig. Driscoll, because he didn't have an offseason, he's going to have to just blow people away at camp.
Right.
Look, they'd like him. His future is, Geoff, at a minimum, as their top backup guard. And maybe Pryor obviously will be the future at obviously at right guard when Brandon Brooks is done. Brooks's base salary, as we reported months ago, became fully guaranteed in March for 2021. He had an advance guarantee on his contract, so he'll definitely be on the roster next year. But Driscoll's a guy they have high hopes for. But this season, Geoff, as you mentioned, I just don't see. I don't see how he dresses every week. He would have to blow people away during training camp.
No. The one thing I do like about the Eagles with their line situation is that they've addressed it over the last few years with draft picks and rookie free agent signings that they like and giving these guys a chance. So I'm not telling you that the cupboard is stacked, but it's not bare. And if one or two of those guys, makes it or is even adequate, they're in a lot better shape than other teams, because we know offensive line play around the league is terrible. So
and by the way, there. Yes, they have. They've done incredibly well in recent years of drafting and developing. You just go through it. We mentioned Seymour is a very solid player. He's been a guy who started off his career very slowly. First 2 years was a struggle. He had a breakout season in 18. He's just a solid football player. Probably will never be an all-pro, but he's a solid player, or Pro Bowler, but he's just a solid player. Pryor's been a surprise. I mean, again, he didn't play a lot. But if you look since 16, just the development of these players, the Mailata fine is just – he's been hurt, obviously, with the back. He's fine, now from his back, but he's a freak of nature. They've done very well of developing these younger players, and it's crazy how many of these undrafted guys that Herbig, Render, Opeta, that they have high hopes for. Oh, the one guy that people asked us on our message board on Facebook, by the way, we're about 1,200 plus people of our 8,000 to 10,000 people listen every week to each show. We've got so we're getting 10-15% of our overall audience is on our Facebook page, actually a little less than that, but somewhere around that. Go there, because you can ask your questions there. And one of them was about Prince Wanago. Would he have a chance, Geoff? And I was like, look, he's a project. I'll just answer this now. Yeah. It'll be 50-50 whether he makes a team, but no one's thinking that he'll actually dress this season.
Okay, that makes sense, especially without the benefit of any of the camps. I want to get back to something you said. Well, two things. Sure. One, I think sometimes because he's not young, we forget to put Kelsey in the draft and development part. He went through a downtime a couple of years ago where it was there was some wonder about his career with the Eagles, and he was really available. Come back.
Yeah, I actually reported it. 4 years. God, time has passed. It might have been 16.
Yeah.
I just know this. He was available, and no one wanted his contract. And you're right. He was coming off of a down season years ago. Obviously, now he's stud, and he's going to go down as one of the best centers in Eagles history. I don't know that he'll ever be a Hall of Famer, but he's a terrific player. But this is not a contract show per se, although we might get into a little bit of this with our next segment. But Kelsey's a guy that they're pretty much going to – this is the season where they got to figure out who his replacement is for the future. Whether Seumalo moves over or it's going to be Herbert, they need to get to that point.
Yeah. So the second point on that before we move on is that this is why I kind of philosophically don't love the idea of re-signing Jason Peters, is because he's 38 years old. I don't know any other organization that has brought back a player, even a great one at that age, to play a position like that. And if you are a draft and develop organization, as the Eagles have said they need to be and will be ever since Howie came back in 2016, there's a time that you need to understand to move on, cut the cord, and put faith in the players you drafted and give your coaches the opportunity to develop them. Matt Pryor now will not get the same opportunity to develop at right guard with Jason Peters in there. And of course, if it works out, it works out. It's great and whatever. But I also believe that sometimes things can work for the wrong reasons, right? I mean, your philosophy, in my opinion, should be draft, develop, trust your coaches, trust your scheme, trust what you do. This is a move that I don't think a lot of teams, good teams, championship teams, similar teams would make. If you could point to, I mean, the Patriots have finally said no to Tom Brady. The Eagles can certainly say no, right, to Jason Peters.
But this is a unique situation.
2 years older. But what makes it more unique than the Patriots are going to play Jarrett
Brady's
Stidham,
actually
Cam Newton,
Brady turns 43 in August. It's crazy, but
he's a quarterback. He doesn't take the kind of punishment that an offensive lineman.
You're fired up.
He played almost every single game.
You did not. You've been pretty consistent. You didn't want Peters back. Yeah. Let's face it. Let's call it like it is. You were not in favor of it.
It has nothing to do with Guy.
Right.
Nothing to do with Jason.
So do you want to? Is it from a standpoint? I'm just going back to when I put it on our radar in our show, that despite what's out there, there's a realistic chance they bring Peters back. We put this out last December on our show. And I said, I'm just hearing it. I said, I find it hard to believe, but just pretty good source that it's on the radar. I thought it was ridiculous, but it was when we were getting intel on Dillard, it started to make more sense about whether he's going to be ready or not. But is your thinking here that they just have to get you super young, do what Seattle did? John Schneider, their GM, told me last summer that what they were doing was retooling. He called it resetting. They were not going to rebuild, period, end of story, because they're with Wilson, Chris Carson, some of the receivers, the young receivers, and obviously they still had some good defenders in the front seven. Why would we rebuild? We've got a good base here. We just need to add to it, and I think that's where the Eagles are. So you're thinking, right, is look, they just have to turn the page of just enough of these older players. It sounds like, right?
Yeah, because to me it reflects something larger. It reflects an almost a nervousness, like we don't trust the people we have in place, our coaches, our talent, our program, that we can move on. The Green Bay Packers moved on from Brett Favre. He could still play. He went back to the NFC Championship game.
Well, they drafted a quarterback.
But listen, he had never played. He sat for 4 years. You didn't know.
3 years, yeah.
So they've drafted guys. You saw Matt Pryor play. He had potential. Like, what's to stop the Eagles from doing this again next year? When do you draw the line?
Well, okay. I would say this. If obviously Peters will not be back in 21. I mean, this is just enough. Yeah, he's not going.
Is it? He said he wants to play till 40.
Well, here's the thing. Like, you're right. Like, it's funny. Folks, if you did not hear it, we talked about Peters a lot in recent shows because we knew he was coming back. It was just, but we thought he was coming back to take the job from Dillard for the season and let Dillard be the starter in 21. But that's not what happened. The question then becomes, to what you're saying, at what point are you really going to cut the cord on the older players? Because Howie Roseman said at the combine, you and I were there. He was standing right in front of us. He admitted that he had a real issue on walking away from older players. He just he got to know, either he got to know them personally. We know that Jason Peters and Jeffrey Lurie have a very close relationship, which is pretty interesting. But at some point, you got to say it's enough already. Look, Brent Selleck, they walked away from him, but what people don't know is. They were actually willing to bring him back at a significantly lower number. Mm-hmm. And what Brent's decided was, you know what, I'm done. I'm just not going to come back. And funny thing is the Colts actually called him that year to come out of retirement for actually a lot of money, but he decided not to. But this situation, Geoff, it's fascinating. I've been on the bring Peters back to play left tackle. situation. You and I just don't see it the same way. I agree with you getting younger, but I'm about whether they're ready or not. If you have information from a club standpoint that you go, you know what, if our offensive line coach or whoever doesn't think he's ready, then you bring the old guy back. If you think he's ready, then do not bring the old guy back. But before we move on to our next subject, this is good discussion.
Right.
Because all their backups are young. Do they need a veteran player just for insurance as a backup?
Man,
sorry,
no.
I didn't bring that up. It's been on my mind. No,
what you want another old guy?
Yeah, all right, no, but like you got a 37 to 28.
You got a 30. Wait, hold on. You got a 38-year-old right guard. You have a 33-year-old center. All right, Lane Johnson's not old by any means, but I think he's 30. About to be 30, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you want to bring another 30-something into the line? I mean,
no, like a guy who
28. Okay.
28, 27, 28. Just all right. I got it.
All right. It wouldn't hurt. Okay, in that regard, it wouldn't hurt. I guess it wouldn't hurt to compete, but I would like to see the Eagles give these young kids a chance to play, or at least prove first that they don't deserve the job.
Got it.
I'm glad you mentioned what we talked about, though, because on our website right now, InsideTheBirds.com, Andrew DeCecco and I are doing kind of pieces previewing the season started this week. So every day we do we pick a category and give our selection. You know, we've done strongest position of the team. We're doing weakest position. We're doing most poised for a breakout, most poised for on the decline. So everybody go to InsideTheBirds.com, check that out. And then, of course, Adam and I will continue our the Buzz series. We'll find something that's buzzing right now, maybe even this topic, and go back.
Oh,
and
God.
Email. No, I'm just kidding. We'll find something better than that.
Well, it's funny. The funny thing is we did this. Did we not break this down 2 weeks ago about bringing Peters back, whether they should do it or not? And it's funny. It's funny. We talked about whether Pryor would be ready to replace Brooks, but we never even thought of. I wish I would have heard an inkling. No one did. No one knew it was coming. But yeah, it's a very interesting story. It's rare that we spend a lot of time talking about offensive linemen, but this is a pretty big story. When I say story, it wasn't what Brian Baldinger blew it up a lot, obviously, but maybe what Baldy meant was it's because Peters will not be playing left tackle. He's going to be playing right guard, which no one thought of. I mean, wow.
Yep, dude, no one definitely thought that. That was a shocker. So you meant it's a good segue because a lot of people thought when Brian Baldinger tweeted that the big news was going to be Jadeveon Clowney is going to be an Eagle, or maybe somebody else, Jamal Adams, Yannick Ngakoue. We did a podcast a couple days ago about it. Then you came out with further information saying, as far as you've heard, nothing's really changed with Jadeveon Clowney as far as what he's looking for. Is that still the same today? Yeah.
So as you listen to this Thursday morning, at 6 a.m. Eastern, if you're listening right when you get the little subscriber notification, man, that's the best way to do it. Whether you're listening to YouTube shows or Apple or you're on Android, getting that notification when you go into work, if you're going into work, depending on whether you're going to work at home. But here's where I'm at with Clowney. I've talked to probably at least 6 teams about him this week. As far as they're concerned, including the Eagles, Clowney has not lowered his number. There's a story out there, but teams I've spoken with do not agree with that story that's out there. They believe that he wanted somewhere around $21 million to start. He only
on a 1-year deal, right?
Well, no, per season. He wanted per season about $21 million. This is where he started in March. The Seahawks were below that, but actually, I'm told he made a pretty good offer, fair offer considering his injury history. He turned that down. The belief around the league is he's come down from 21. It's not known exactly what the number is because the teams I've spoken with do not agree with whatever news information's out there about what he wants. They just know that based on his injury history, they can't get anywhere close to 16, 17, 18, 19 million. Can't do it. Now, the Browns, the ESPN report said that they made him the best offer. Okay. We don't know exactly what that number is. We also don't know, not only that, we don't know if it's a 1-year structure or 1-year deal. So as far as the Eagles are definitely interested, there's no question. Now, let's go back to what we reported 2 months ago, first on our show here. The Eagles were not interested at the time simply because he wanted so much money. Before the draft, didn't change. So they weren't interested. Right. But they monitor it. You kind of see where the situation goes. 2 months later from our report, they're definitely interested because he's still available, Geoff. This is Never expected. I never predicted he'd sign before the draft. I'm just shocked that he's still out there. It's more on him. I got to be honest with you. It's more on him than the other teams because he's turned down a bunch of teams because they're not close to what he wants. And he, remember, he kind of, he turned down Miami, man. You remember last year, he didn't want to go there because he wanted to win. They ran a scheme that he'd play well in, but he was with a bad. He could have been with a bad team with Brian Flores. By the way, he's turning things around there in Miami, but he decided not to go there, and now he's available, Geoff. So here's the question: if you're the Eagles, at what point do you make a charge? Like, what's your number? What are you willing to work? What are you willing to pay him? Or you just want to do a 1-year deal? And that's kind of what I think, Geoff, is the issue here.
Mm-hmm.
What's your opportunity cost to bring this player in?
Well, you said that Seattle made a fairly competitive offer, just not what he's looking for. So doesn't it stand to reason, Adam, that if he lowers his contract demands and he's willing to take a 1-year deal for a lot less than what he wants, that Seattle would still be in the driver's seat because they already at least made a competitive offer?
My understanding is they would not offer him the same money that he had before. Now, let me just make this clear for people quoting me here if they are. I don't know exactly what their offer is. I'm just gonna make a number up. Let's say it was $17 million a year, right? And he said no. Okay. Well, we're 2 months. We're April, May, June, July. We're 4 months past free agency. Okay. Teams have spent a lot of their free agent money, their free agent budget. They've had the draft. Now, Seattle certainly would like to have Clowney back. It won't be anywhere close to the number that they offered him. Let's say, again, I'm guessing. I don't know what the number was. Let's say it was $17 million.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we mentioned on our previous show, you can listen to that, obviously archived if you haven't heard it. I threw out the number that I threw out a couple months ago. It wasn't exactly the number that he's going to take, obviously. I said 9 to 10 million. To me, that's a no-brainer. You would have 20 if he's willing to take a 1-year deal. Let's say cash 9 to 10 million with upside to 15. That's per game roster bonuses. It's a statistical achievement to get it up to 15 million. You're going to have a lot of teams involved. But now that the amount of teams involved, Cleveland's off the table, obviously, based on the Vernon restructure,
right?
And obviously what they just did with
Myles Garrett, $25
million a year. So that's out. I know the Ravens have been sniffing around for outside linebacker help, pass rusher help. Probably 3 or 4 teams are still looking. The Giants are going to bring back Golden, so they tendered him, so he'll be back.
Right.
I'm surprised that no one signed him. I thought he'd get a nice deal, Marcus Golden, who could play in a 43 or 34. But in terms of the Eagles, Geoff, here, let me ask you this question. The fact that they have interest in Clowney, what does that mean for Derek Barnett?
That's a great question because this is supposed to be a prove it. I mean, look, in Jim Schwartz's system, even if you're starting Clowney and Graham, you know that there's going to be opportunities for Derek Barnett to play on that second line. He'll get a decent amount of reps, but it's not going to be. To me, he's not going to be. You're not going to keep him on the team the year after, right? When his 5th-year option makes his price that much higher, and he's not even a starter, I would think.
Well,
unless
guess
you're
what?
not going to go back to him as a starter if you just displace him with Clowney for a year.
All right. Little contract talk here. This is I was trying to figure out. We'll get to Ngakoue in a minute. If there's any way they could bring Ngakoue in, because we've talked about the cap before. Obviously, I don't like talking cap because it doesn't matter usually. If you talk to anyone who actually does contracts in the National Football League side, they care so little about the cap. It's all about cash commitments and cash flow. Now, we asked in 21, we know, folks, that the Eagles have a major cap challenge. We've discussed it. We've outlined it. We've gone over just about every contract. But from the cash commitment, which is way more important to clubs, cap means very little to them. Cap you have to work around. Cash is all that matters. So the cash commitment to Barnett, I didn't realize how much they owe him next year. It's starting to make a little bit more sense to me why they'd want to bring Clowney in or someone else. Take a guess what Barnett's owed next year.
That would be the 5th-year option tag,
correct?
Right? Or it's probably for a pass rusher and his 5th.
Well, okay,
probably
real quick,
like $10 million, maybe.
Okay. Before I answer that, his base salary this year is $2.217 million.
Yeah.
Next year, you nailed it, $10.051 million. Pretty good guess without looking.
Yeah.
He's not a $10 million player. He's just not.
No.
So
plus,
Geoff,
you're not. What would you do if you brought in Clowney or Ngakoue, but you kept him because you kept Barnett, right? Because
he's a bargain as a backup, right? Oh my God, if you brought,
but then for sure. you're not going to then go put him back in the starting lineup the next year.
No,
at
he's
$10 million.
Yeah,
he's gone. Yeah,
he's going to have a kick-ass year this year to come back.
Yeah,
and that, remember, this contract, folks, is only old CBA. Next year's base salary is only guaranteed for injury only. Becomes fully guaranteed the first day of free agency in 2021, which will be around mid-March.
Yeah, they'll decline that option. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they just will. Yeah. He's under the option, but they'll just cut him or trade him.
That's what I mean. They'll cut him
before the money becomes fully guaranteed. So let's get back to Clowney here. So before we move on to Ngakoue, if he significantly lowers his money ask, Eagles are going to be in business here for a pretty big way. They'll go after him, but. There's just not the teams that I know that like him. They're not, because the other problem that he has is because of his injury history. He's had a lot of knee injuries. He's coming off the sports muscle core injury surgery here in Philly from Dr. Myers. How do you pay this guy for more than a year? It's hard. Or if you do, but you got to be able to get out after a year, don't you?
It feels a lot like the conversations from 2017 about Alshon Jeffrey. Tremendous talent, but hurt a lot, had the PED suspension. So there was a lot of risk involved, and that's why he never got that blockbuster offer he was looking for until the Eagles signed him to a 1-year deal. I just think this time around, Adam, if his number comes down, and I'll make up a number. Let's say he's willing to play on a 1-year 10 to 12 with incentives to get to 15 or something like that. Mm-hmm. I still think Seattle, because he played there last year, and without the benefit of all these camps, and because of his comfort with the coaching staff and the scheme, it just might favor both sides for him to take the money from them as long as they're willing to give that up, unless they're just completely not going to get involved anymore. But I would doubt.
Here's the thing with Seattle's contracts. They do a sign-in bonus, and they only fully guarantee 1 year, and then they walk. If they, that's the way they do their contracts. They don't change. Even Russell Wilson is the same. Russell Wilson got like a $65 million signing bonus. Mm-hmm. And 1 year fully guaranteed salary, and the rest are rolling guarantees every, the next couple of years.
Sure.
So that's
well, that's what we're talking about, a 1-year deal, though. Right?
Yeah, right. When you look at Clowney, he's been towing a hard line here, which is his prerogative if he wants to do that. But it's too bad because if the Eagles were able to get this guy, this would be not only be the NFL's best offensive line, they have the best depth in the National Football League. No one's deeper D tackle in this team.
Oh, nobody.
But the talent drop off. Graham is above average pass rusher. He's not great, but he's a good football player. Mm-hmm. But the Eagles don't have anyone like Clowney who's got length. Arms seem to never end. It's 34.5-inch arms, I'm told. Mm-hmm. And he blows plays up. He helps your run game. He helps if you go against an athletic quarterback, he could chase him. Mm-hmm. It's just a very unique football player. It's a shame that they can't get involved right now because the money's too high. So we'll see what happens. Look, he hasn't signed yet. We'll see what happens there. And then, what else?
Before we get to Ngakoue and the news on him, I want to thank our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, covering all of the 4 Philly sports teams like nobody else. They are enhancing the fan experience with all their coverage. Great podcast, great content for the fans, by the fans. You can catch them on Twitter at PHLSportsNation or on their website, PHLSportsNation.com. We thank them for being great affiliates. And also, we'll pause right now for a quick word from our great sponsors. Okay, let's move on from Clowney and talk Yannick Ngakoue. Sure. There was that report, I believe, Adam Schefter, where he's basically saying that, it was kind of a long block report that basically suggested that the Jags don't want to trade Yannick Ngakoue, and that
they haven't gotten what they wanted. They just haven't.
Right. They don't want to trade him because they have not gotten what they want.
Yeah, that's correct. Really what he wrote. Look, here's the deal. The Jaguars had offers. Okay, they could have moved him. The player does not want to be there in Jacksonville. It doesn't matter what they could offer him $25 million a season. Mm-hmm. He's not. He don't want to be there. This is not a secret. He's made it clear. I checked earlier this week with a couple teams. I said, "What is your understanding where he's at?" He's like, he wants out. He also was willing to be traded on the tag, and he would live with just playing for just over $17 million this season. And obviously, he'd want the new contract after the season, because obviously now he cannot have his contract renegotiated. He has to play on the tag once he signs it. But I just get the sense, Geoff, that he's not going to be playing for the Jaguars season. That he'll, I don't know about a Le'Veon Bell, but it's bad. He just don't want to be there, and they're just, I don't know what the exact reason is. That's unclear, but my understanding of talking to a lot of people is that the guy wants out. Obviously, he'd like to go somewhere where he could be a starting defensive end. Now, he did play in a 34 at Maryland, so he can do that.
Right.
But fact of the matter is, when it comes to the Eagles, we reported, back in March, the Eagles had interest in this player, and I've been pretty steadfast. I said, look, if they were ever going to do any big money deal, it was going to be Ngakoue. If they did it, I didn't say they were going to do it, but I said, listen, if they're ever going to do that, what? And again, it's because Ngakoue and Clowney are better football players than Barnett. It is what it is. I'm not criticizing Barnett. It's just obvious. So nothing happened this week with Eagles and Ngakoue. I know it's something they've looked into.
Well, how does his willingness to play under the tag this year change his prospect of getting traded? Because a lot of teams were fearful of, well, I trade for this guy, but now I got to pay him out the wazoo for 5 or 6 years, and I just gave up. Or he might leave, and I just gave up well,
that's the issue, right?
Yeah.
What you do is then you have to tag, like for instance, like if you trade for him, he plays this year at just over 17 million, and then it is. First of all, you have to, his base salary this season, which is fully guaranteed when he signs it, $17.788 million, almost $18 million, cash and cap. It's exactly the same. It counts exactly the same. You cannot pay him lower by CBA rules. You can only play. You can actually entice him. I remember Andrew Brand telling me that there were a couple instances over the years where some club offered the franchise player just to come in to sign it, a little bit more money or whatever the case, whatever exactly what they did, but he indicated it was money. That's all you can do to get him in. But if you're the Eagles, Geoff, here's the problem that you have. We talk about cash commitments, which is, you talk to any contract negotiator around the National Football League, this is the number one thing when they talk to the controller of the team, the president, is cash commitments. Listen to these cash commitments next year. Now, I know a lot of these guys are probably going to be cut, but they're on the books. Alshon Jeffrey, $12.75 million. Deshaun Jackson, $8.2 million. Ertz, $8.25. Lane Johnson, $9.565. Brandon Graham, 13. I'll get Brandon Brooks is $10.4 million. Barnett, $10.05 million. Brandon Graham, $13 million. Hargrave jumps to $12.75 million. Darius Slay, $12 million. Carson Wentz jumps up to $15 million. Plus, he's got other money coming in cash that's not paragraph 5. Through 12 players have got a cash commitment of $136 million. That, first of all, with a flat cap, if it even drops or just stays the same, that's only 12 players. This is not counting some guys are making $5 to $7 million. I just cherry picked about guys that are important or have high base salaries, or some of them are older. It's not going to be easy. And plus, we know the Ertz situation. They may restructure. I mean, they may extend it. We'll see what happens there. There's some challenges here with cash commitments, and then the cap issue. Obviously, it's true. I mean, for the first time I could remember with this football team, they got a cap issue for one season. It's next year, but they'll fit. I don't worry about it too much, Geoff. Howie Roseman is pretty resourceful. Jake Rosenberg, Brace Johnson, they'll figure out a way to do this to get through it. But I do think this: if they wind up making a big deal before like trading for somebody, what will happen is next year if they trade for someone and they extend this player, you're going to see Jeffrey gone, D-Jack's gone. That lops off about 21 million in cash. You can lop off, and then Kelsey might retire. We'll see what happens there. I went through about 8 contracts where you can make a case for a lot of these guys being gone. you can lop off 45 to 50 million in cash, and you certainly can make the Don Spolensky happy and Jeffrey Lurie happy and whoever their controller is. But they got some challenges, man. It's hard to bring it's just hard to bring another big cash commitment than obviously dealing with their cap situation. I just never thought Ngakoue was realistic. I just knew for the last 3 months they've liked the guy.
Yeah, well, that'll be interesting to see. Like, because the franchise tag deadline passed today, but he never signed the tender. So even if he's traded, he can still renegotiate. He can still negotiate a extension. Correct?
No. You cannot. Franchise players, you transition players, you can. You cannot with franchise players.
But he's not technically tagged because he didn't sign the extension.
No, he's tagged. Right? No, he's tagged. He just hasn't signed
tagged, right. He just didn't sign it. So no matter what, you can't give him a long-term extension.
No, not after the 15th. You got to wait till their season's. Wherever team he's on, you have to wait till the season's over, after they're done. So it's look, it's not easy. This is a huge year for Derek Barnett. We're just going to assume that Barnett's going to be their starting right end. Jannard Avery, we've talked about a bit. They want to take a look at this kid. We know what Josh Sweat is. The problem with Josh Sweat, Geoff, is this. The teams that I talked about him before the draft thought he was a one-contract player, which means that his knee would not hold up after 4 or 5 years. Right. They've managed him a certain way. So far, so good. He had a couple flare-ups with the knee since they drafted him, but he's in his 3rd year. He's been a nice story of development, but he's not a guy you're going to play 30, 35 snaps a game. No,
he's actually perfect for the role that they have him earmarked for as the 3rd or 4th the end.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
So we'll see. Anything look, and then remember, Vinny Curry's still out there, as you reported. The Eagles, have interest in bringing him back, and we'll see where that goes. So that's where the defense. We just outlined, folks, their defensive end position. This is what they have, and we'll see if this has got to be a breakout year for Barnett. He's got to stay healthy, and he's got to have a huge year for him to come back next year. Period.
Yeah. So let's finish it off because we've intimated about some of the changes for camp. I mean, the preseason games is still an issue right now. As we are getting through this week, the NFLPA and the NFL are continuing to talk. They're presenting different proposals to each other. We know the NFL wants 2 preseason games. NFLPA wants 0 preseason games for a health and safety standpoint. I wonder if that can't be a deal breaker, right? I mean, the NFL cannot not have this thing start because they want 2 preseason games, right?
It shouldn't be. Maybe
I could see money being an issue. I can't see preseason games being.
Money's always an issue,
thing, right? Money, of course, is always an issue.
And by the way, the players want to minimize the risk as much as they can. That's part of why they don't want to play games.
Right.
It is not good. Right. Preseason games. Right. This is not good if they don't have any, only because, and it's certainly realistic that we're not going to have any preseason games. It does really stink for the undrafted free agents. We mentioned before that guys like Corey Clement would be jeopardized. You just would not know about them. Although Clement had a very good offseason in his rookie season of 17. But this is the problem. These young guys, and you'd said earlier on the show that guys like Herbig and Pryor and Mailata need reps. Well, if you don't get it in games, you're going to have to get it in practice. But guess what? Lane Johnson needs some reps. Kelsey needs some reps. They don't need to overwork them because they're older. Dillard needs reps like crazy. Mailata needs reps. So it's not – I don't know. Here's a question for you. This brings up another point I was just thinking as we were talking about this. How well do you think this football is going to look this season?
Oh, I mean, we've talked about this a little bit already.
I'm concerned about it. Yeah,
especially if you don't have 11-on-11s at training camp.
Yeah, right.
I think the product's going to suffer, and I think it's not. I don't know if anybody should be criticized for it. It just may have to be that you have to temper your expectations and understand that this is a very unique situation, and just know that what you're used to seeing is probably not going to be the level that you see this year. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you can blame the players or blame the owners for all the protocols, but I mean, they're just trying to do
they're just trying to stay healthy.
The right approach.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm not saying I'm just saying people will. There's always somebody who's going to come down on something. And when a team loses a game, to be honest with you, and they play sloppy, nobody remembers. It's like you get the 24 hours of vitriol, and someone's got to take the blame.
Fans will look for excuses. I know it's kind of funny,
but I really worry about trench play, Adam, defensive and offensive line play. in general. If they don't have that repetition in practice, it's not going to look pretty for the first few weeks of the season.
I agree. But like I said, the one personnel guy that was working in 7-11 said that it was around weeks 3 or 4 of the regular season where the football looked like it's supposed to look. But again, we're probably not going to have much of a preseason. So, as you said, it is what it is. And they're going to have more training camp practice than they normally would because you're not going to be practicing the day before. Like, as you know, when you have a preseason game, you don't practice the day before, the day of, or the day after. So there's 3 open days now that they could add maybe 2 practices at the very least. There won't be 2-a-days. Those have been gone for decades. So we'll see what happens. It's a brave new world for the players and the coaches.
Right. Now, Adam, one thing you mentioned, and we'll finish on this. There are some players at the NovaCare already, right? The injured ones.
Yeah.
Rehabbing.
So Corey Clement.
Rehabbing.
Yeah, Corey Clement had his video running hard. He did look good, but you can't really tell.
Right.
He's running hard, and he's coming back from his. He's had so many surgeries. What did he have? A shoulder this time? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think it was the shoulder this time.
Yeah.
So we know that. And Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network reported that rookies, the earliest they can report would be next Tuesday, which is about a week before the 28th, the start of camp. But we've seen Jeffrey Lurie be kind of ultra cautious and want guys in this area, like the coaching staff has been here for a while in this area. So I would I'd be inclined to think that if rookies are supposed to be here by next Tuesday, then maybe Eagles rookies will start to hear about maybe their arrival soon. Because you would think Jeffrey would want to get him tested and have him ready, because he's been more cautious than other owners. So we'll look into that. Maybe we can find out when the first, second, and third, Rager and Hurts and Davion Taylor. Who else is unsigned? Because
they only have 2 signed.
Yeah, Winago and Watkins.
Correct. That's it. Yeah. And what we reported a month ago is pretty much what they're thinking was that they want, like most teams, that's why very few players have signed. They like to have their own team doctor, examine these players or their medical staff, however it works. But I don't quite understand why Watkins signed already. I never got a straight answer on that, but good. It doesn't matter. All these rookie contracts, they're really it's all subject to the players passing the physical by their own doctor anyway, even if he had an independent doctor that they both agreed on. That's it's the same as the free agent deals because of COVID. It's the way the teams are looking at this. They got stuff to pass the team physical. So I just hope that we have football this season. We'll have more on that in probably our next show, because I actually talked to some college coaches, and I've talked to more coaches just about their feelings on it. And I'm certainly not, Jeff, as optimistic as I once was that we're going to have a season. I was totally like, go figure out a way to do it. It's partially because of the COVID numbers in certain states.
Right.
It's, and trying to have a game in a state where the numbers are so astronomical. If you're not put players in a bubble, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to keep the numbers down, but we will be crossing our fingers for football.
Yeah. Well, if baseball can do it, baseball's not in a bubble, and you've got guys in every single city where there's a baseball team. And I'm not saying they're doing it so far. We're only 2.5 weeks in to their experiment. It seems to be going well. If baseball can do it and carry it through, I'll feel that NFL can. But I agree with you from a fan standpoint. I don't think you're going to see fans in stadiums.
Oh, forget that. Yeah. I mean, the NFL is funny. They're not giving up on the hope that you might be able to get some limited fans in there.
Yeah.
Well, the team's already giving fans the ability not to go to the games this year.
Right.
They're offering full refunds. A lot of teams are announcing it. Now, part of it is because they know that if fans don't opt out, who are they going to choose to not go to games? So you got to lop off 40,000 people not to go. Like, how are you going to decide who goes and who doesn't? But it's a shame. I mean, it is what it is. No one's fault. We're not going to point the finger. We'll try to get through it. And we need football, folks. Boy, do we need football.
Amen to that. All right, that's going to do it for Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Thanks so much to our producer, Hunter Brody. Check out his work on YouTube. It's called Sports Talk with Broads. And also check out his podcast with former Villanova basketball star Darrell Reynolds. It's called Processed. And, of course, the Sixers about to start up their season, restart their season in the bubble there in Orlando. So he and D-Ray have a lot to talk about. Make sure you check out Hunter's work on Twitter at Broads81. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.